Most scams don't look illegal, they look normal. They're baked into prices, wrapped in convenience, and justified as just how things work. You agree to them without clicking anything, signing anything, or even realizing a decision was made. This video isn't about fraud. It's about quiet systems that extract more money than they should, simply because people stopped questioning them. Here are 10 consumer scams hiding in plain sight, ranked from best to worst, based on how unavoidable they are and how much leverage you actually have. Number 10, digital tip prompts at checkout. Digital tip prompts didn't appear to reward better service. They appeared because screens remove friction. When a terminal flips around and suggests 20% for a transaction that required no ongoing service, the responsibility quietly shifts from employer to customer. There's no conversation, just a moment of pressure while someone waits. What makes this effective isn't generosity, it's social discomfort. People tip not because value increased, but because declining feels awkward, even when it's justified. The preset percentages anchor expectations, and the amounts stay small enough to feel harmless. That's why this sits at the bottom of the list. The pressure is uncomfortable, but the cost is fully avoidable the moment you're willing to ignore the screen. Number 9, premium seating in cinemas. Movie theaters didn't suddenly discover comfort, they discovered segmentation. What used to be standard, reasonable legroom, clear sightlines, and a tolerable viewing angle was quietly split into tiers. The base ticket remained, but it was deliberately left behind as expectations changed. This creates a psychological trap. You're not choosing a luxury upgrade, you're choosing whether to tolerate a worse experience. The comparison isn't between good and better, it's between acceptable and uncomfortable. Once that shift happens, the higher price seat stops feeling optional. It feels like the right way to watch a movie, even though the film itself hasn't changed at all. You still have the option to sit through the standard experience, which is why this ranks low. But the pricing works because the discomfort is engineered, not accidental. Number 8, limited edition product drops. Limited edition drops are framed as a reward for attention. In reality, they're a pricing system built on speed, not value. By controlling release windows instead of supply, brands bypass normal consumer behavior. There's no time to compare prices, read reviews, or even ask whether the product is actually good. The decision collapses into one question: do I act now, or do I miss out? What makes this especially effective is that the scarcity feels earned. People who succeed in buying feel selected, not exploited. The stress, the countdowns, the cues, they all get reinterpreted as part of the experience. Secondary markets reinforce the illusion. High resale prices make the original purchase feel smart, even though the demand was manufactured in the first place. The product becomes a financial story, not a functional one. The moment you step back and refuse urgency, the entire system loses its power, which is why this remains highly effective emotionally, but still structurally easy to avoid. Number 7, event merchandising. Event merchandising works because it captures people at their emotional peak. You're surrounded by thousands of fans who care about the same thing you do. The music hits, the team scores, the crowd erupts. And for a few hours, you're inside what feels like a perfect moment. Fans aren't miserable, they're not rushed, they're not distracted, they're trapped in heaven. That's what makes the pricing work. In that state, logic feels out of place. Questioning a $50 shirt or a $90 hoodie feels almost disrespectful to the moment itself. You're not buying fabric, you're buying proof that the experience mattered. The environment does the rest. No alternatives, no second chance, no cooling off period. The line moves fast, the card reader beeps, and the memory becomes a transaction. You only pay these prices if you let the emotional high override the knowledge that nothing is actually forcing the purchase. If you're starting to see how often pressure replaces value, subscribe, because from here on out, avoidance gets much harder. Number 6, travel insurance auto add-ons. Travel insurance isn't sold when people are calm. It's sold after commitment, when uncertainty feels expensive. By the time the option appears, flights are booked, dates are fixed, hotels are paid for, and any disruption now threatens real money. That's not an accident. The timing is deliberate. Comparison shopping would weaken the sale, so it's removed from the moment entirely. The language is intentionally vague. Peace of mind, unexpected events, protect your trip. Specifics are buried, exclusions are long, and the actual likelihood of use is never discussed. Fear fills the gaps. What makes this especially effective is moral framing. Declining doesn't feel like a financial choice. It feels irresponsible, even reckless. People aren't buying coverage. They're buying relief from anxiety they didn't have 5 minutes earlier. This ranks higher because the moment strips away clarity and compresses decision-making, even though the charge is still technically optional. Number 5, hotel early check-in and late checkout fees. Hotel schedules aren't natural laws, they're operational choices. Check-in and check-out times are set to maximize room turnover, not guest comfort. But instead of owning that trade-off, hotels monetize the friction it creates. After a long flight or a late night, time becomes leverage. Guests are tired, disoriented, often with luggage in hand and nowhere to go. In that moment, an extra hour or two isn't a luxury, it's relief. The fee doesn't reflect real cost. The room is often already empty, cleaned, and waiting. What you're paying for is permission to ignore an arbitrary rule. Avoidance becomes difficult because logistics stack against you. When exhaustion and schedules collide, rational resistance weakens, and paying feels easier than pushing back. Number 4, stadium and venue food pricing. Stadium and venue pricing works because normal market forces are deliberately removed. Before you enter, everything looks familiar. Brands you recognize, food you've bought 100 times elsewhere. But the moment you pass security, the environment changes completely. Outside food is banned, re-entry is restricted, and the event itself locks you into a fixed window of time. Hunger isn't accidental, it's predictable. Once inside, price stops being a negotiation and becomes a condition. Vendors don't need to compete on value because there is no competition. The product didn't get better and the cost didn't increase. Only your options disappeared. That's why prices feel irrational but still get paid. The transaction isn't about convenience, it's about containment. Once you're inside, choice disappears, which is why this moves firmly into coercive territory rather than optional spending. Number 3, airline carry-on baggage fees. Carry-on baggage fees aren't really about bags, they're about discipline. Airlines know that most passengers want to avoid checked luggage. It saves time, reduces risk, and feels more in control. By charging for carry-ons, airlines turn that preference into leverage. The system is intentionally unclear. Size limits are ambiguous. Enforcement varies by gate agent. The penalty for guessing wrong is severe and public. Last-minute fees, forced checking, delays, embarrassment. That uncertainty does the real work. Passengers pack smaller than they want, arrive earlier than necessary, line up sooner than planned, and comply faster at every step. Stress becomes a management tool. What looks like a simple fee actually reshapes behavior across the entire journey. By the time money changes hands, the choice no longer feels like a choice. It feels like compliance with a rule you don't control. This ranks near the top because normal travel behavior is punished so consistently that avoiding the cost requires planning, anxiety, and submission rather than a rational decision. Number 2, ticketing service fees. Ticketing service fees exist because access is controlled, not because value is added. In theory, buying a ticket should be a simple transaction. Payment in exchange for entry. In practice, that transaction is routed through a small number of platforms that control distribution for concerts, sports, and live events. Once that control is in place, the fee becomes untouchable. It doesn't need justification, improvement, or transparency. It appears automatically, scales with ticket price, and cannot be removed. What makes this system especially aggressive is that it's invisible until commitment. You choose the seat. You click checkout. Only then does the full cost appear, layered with charges that don't correspond to service or benefit. There's no behavior change that avoids it, no cheaper option within the same system. Paying the fee isn't a choice, it's a requirement for participation, which is why avoidance no longer exists at this level. Number 1, wedding industry markups. No industry strips consumers of leverage faster than the wedding industry. The moment the word wedding is spoken, normal pricing logic disappears. Identical venues, identical food, identical photography, identical decor. all become dramatically more expensive without any meaningful change in service. This isn't about higher standards or extra complexity. It's about context. Vendors know exactly what happens once the label changes. Negotiation feels inappropriate. Comparison feels cold. Cost-cutting feels like you're cheapening something sacred. Social pressure does the rest. Families are involved. Expectations multiply. Decisions are scrutinized not for value, but for symbolism. Walking away stops feeling like an option, even when the price makes no sense. What makes this the worst scam on the list isn't the markup itself, it's the disappearance of resistance. When saying no risks disappointment, judgment, or regret, price stops functioning as a decision tool. At this point, avoidance isn't difficult, it's socially punished, which is why this system leaves consumers with the least power of any we've covered. None of these scams rely on lies, they rely on normalization. Once a charge feels standard, it stops being questioned, even when it makes no sense. Understanding these systems doesn't mean avoiding every one of them. It means recognizing when you're paying for value and when you're paying because the system expects you to. If you want to keep seeing how everyday economics really work, subscribe. Market logic exists to make the invisible visible.